Overcoming past trauma is tough. But what if I told you that there are clear signs that you are already moving forward, even if it doesn't feel that way? In this video, I'm going to walk you through 8 indicators that show you are making real progress, gaining strength and reclaiming your life. I'm Henrik, a clinical and neurocognitive psychologist helping trauma and scapegoat survivors to find their way in life. If you've ever felt stuck, confused, or unsure about where you are in your process, this video will give you clarity. So let's get straight into it. Number 1, you're feeling more of yourself. One of the most significant signs that you are evolving is that you start to feel more connected to yourself. As your nervous system starts to stabilize, you become more aware of emotions you have long ignored or suppressed. And this might feel overwhelming at first. Old pain, unmet needs, and even anger can surface. A common example I see with many clients is those who have disconnected from their anger for years. They've always been extremely accommodating, friendly, and only know themselves as that type of person. But over time, they start to realize that they actually carry a lot of anger inside. And when this anger begins to surface, it can be quite intense. However, this is quite a positive sign. Many clients find themselves at crossroads at this point because the feeling is so unfamiliar that it again can trigger fear. However, this key message here is it's good that this is coming up because it's been there all along, but just packed away. This behavior, being overly accommodating and friendly, is often a mechanism to avoid dealing with these buried emotions. What's crucial here is your capacity to hold these emotions when making progress. And you will notice that despite the intensity of what comes up, you are able to handle it without feeling completely overwhelmed. So you can observe and process these emotions instead of being consumed by them. And this is real progress because it shows that your ability to stay grounded and regulated is expanding. Number 2, your relationship with yourself is changing. A powerful sign of forward movement is when your relationship with yourself shifts. You start trusting yourself more. Maybe you've been working on your internal dialogue, and now you're noticing that you're less critical and more self-compassionate. The harsh self-judgment that used to dominate your thoughts feels weaker now. One client, for example, realized that her inner critic, the voice that was constantly harsh and judgmental, was actually a reflection of how her mother spoke to her during her upbringing. And once she understood that this critical voice was something she had internalized from her past, she began to change her relationship with it. Almost overnight, she was able to integrate that inner critic, recognizing that it had been a protective mechanism from her childhood. And she even developed a kind of dialogue with it, with herself, where she could acknowledge the critic's past importance. And from that understanding, she was able to cultivate compassion for herself. And this change happens because you gain a deeper understanding of yourself. You start to see the patterns behind your behavior, and instead of labeling yourself as broken, you recognize that many of your past responses are just coping mechanisms. Number 3, clarity in what helps or harms you. As you continue on this path, you will start to gain clarity about what truly supports or harms you. Habits, routines, and even relationships that used to feel safe might now seem draining. And you become more aware of the things that no longer align with your needs, and you start to questioning them. And this might feel unsettling at first, as it often leads to a sense of instability. You might feel like you need to make changes, and that's part of the process. So gaining this clarity is essential because it helps you distinguish between what serves your growth and what holds you back. It's a sign that you are learning to prioritize your well-being. Number 4, more space between trigger and reaction. One of the clearest indicators of progress is that you begin to notice more space between the trigger and your reaction. Instead of immediately reacting to stressful situations with the same intensity as before, you find that you can pause, reflect, and then decide how to respond. You're no longer trapped in reactive patterns, which shows that your ability to regulate your nervous system is improving. Another client, let's call her Melissa, would fall into depressive and anxious states whenever she was alone at home for a few hours, feeling completely lost and helpless. And in our sessions, she realized that this emotional state was tied to her childhood, when she was often left alone and overwhelmed by feelings of abandonment, almost to the point of experiencing what felt like existential fear. And as an adult, these same emotional states would resurface whenever she was alone, despite no immediate danger or reason for it. And this powerful connection between her past and present helped her understand that what she was experiencing wasn't just about the present moment, but also tied to these unresolved emotions from her childhood. And it's important to realize that the subconscious doesn't recognize time in the way we think it does. In the moment that trauma resurfaces, especially developmental trauma, everything feels as if it is happening simultaneously. The past and present merge, and old experiences are easily triggered, showing up as intensely or almost as intensely as they did in childhood. So once Melissa made this connection, the space between her trigger and reaction became larger. She could step back, understand where her feelings were coming from, and start to process them in a more grounded way. So this growing sense of control allows you to step back and choose your actions more thoughtfully. It's one of the most empowering shifts you'll experience, and each time it happens, it's a reminder of how far you've come. Number 5, less compensating, more presence. As you continue to evolve, you will start noticing that you don't rely on the same old coping mechanisms. Whether it's avoidance, overworking, or numbing behaviors, these patterns start to lose their grip. And instead, you are able to stay more present in difficult situations, even those that used to make you uncomfortable. And this is a huge step forward because it means you are no longer avoiding and escaping life anymore. You're dealing with it, staying present and processing what's happening without needing to resort to compensation or compensational strategies. It's not about perfection here, but about being able to handle discomfort and uncertainty with a greater sense of presence and stability. Number 6, changes in relationships. As you grow and become more aware of your needs, your relationships will change. And some relationships will feel more aligned, while others may begin to feel strained. You may find that you no longer tolerate dynamics that once felt acceptable. Whether it's setting clearer boundaries, speaking up for yourself, or simply realizing that some people in your life are not really supportive of your growth. And this can be tough because it often means renegotiating or even losing relationships that have been part of your life for, often a quite long time. But it's important to remember that these shifts are necessary. And as you change, your relationships need to reflect that. And sometimes that means letting go of old dynamics that no longer serve you. Number 7, recognizing your progress. Often the most powerful sign of growth is the ability to look back and see how much has changed. Many of us focus so much on what still isn't perfect that we forget to acknowledge the progress we have made. Take a moment to reflect on where you were a year ago or even a month ago. How did you handle challenges back then compared to now? For example, one of my clients struggled for months with heavy anxiety, and when we first started working together, he couldn't bring himself to leave his house or move more than, let's say, 200 yards or so from his home without experiencing overwhelming panic. And over time, he gradually started feeling safer in his body, and after a few months, he was able to walk freely around a large city without even thinking about the distance. So he noticed his fear had loosened its grip and he could navigate the world with more ease. However, he still needed to be reminded by me of what his situation looked like just a few months ago because he could hardly remember it anymore. Chances are you have grown more than you realize, and maybe you are sleeping better, less reactive, or more comfortable in your own skin. And these are the wins that can easily go unnoticed, but they are important. Recognizing and celebrating your progress, no matter how small, reinforces the positive changes you have made. Number 8, you feel more like yourself. Finally, one of the most meaningful signs of progress is that you start to feel more connected to who you are at your core. You begin to experience moments where you feel grounded in your own identity, confident in your values, and clear about what matters to you. And this isn't about suddenly feeling perfect or invincible. It's about having moments of calm, where you feel at peace with yourself, where the inner chaos subsides, and now you experience a sense of inner stability. And these moments may be brief at first, but they will become more frequent as you continue to grow. All right, remember, progress isn't a straight line, and these signs will come and go. But as long as you notice even the smallest shifts, you are on the right track. Give yourself credit for how far you've come, and know that every small step forward is a victory. If this video resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more content that will help you navigate this path with clarity and strength. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.